John, we have Mina Kimes as the big get, and the NBA TV negotiations are already starting in public.
Andrew, I could care less about that. It's all about the pod. Just ask Adam Silver.
I mean, I try to consume as much as I possibly can. Is this where I plug your podcast?
Please, yes.
Where's Andrew?
And we're back, and I'm right here. Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand.
Our good buddy there, John Ourand,
is the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal, and this is the Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. The Big Get, Mina Kimes. You can go back and listen to the archives last week. A very fun interview with Aaron Andrews. A lot of great interviews. And Mina Kimes, we already recorded it. It's really good, real fun, real insightful. Really get into Jeff Saturday and maybe Mina Kimes' future in the NFL. You'll hear her answer about that, John.
Andrew, before we get into who's up, who's down, everybody talks about Chris Russo's mispronunciation of my name. So now I think people think that's how they pronounce my name. Adam Silver just gave us a new drop, I think, right?
Where's Andrew? Where's Andrew?
All right, well, I'm right here, Adam. I appreciate the shout out. Where was that at? Where were you doing that interview?
That was at the Dealmakers conference here in Washington, D.C. I was on stage with Adam. It's going to be topic one. We're going to get to it, but enough small talk. Let's get right into who's up, who's down.
Who's up? Who's down?
All right. And, we mentioned Adam Silver. My who's up? Adam Silver. I'm seeing a trend here, Andrew. Every time I talk to somebody, they get on my who's up list. I'm very easily swayed.
I wasn't going to sell you out like that, but I did notice that.
I had to beat you to the punch. But look, how can you tell that the NBA is in a good position when it comes to national media rights? Well, it's because people start to negotiate in public, even though we're 3 seasons ahead of time. Hang on. For people that watch on YouTube, I'm pulling out a prop here because I can't talk about David Zaslav without putting on a vest. The Zaslav vest. He's just like his protege, or just like his mentor, Dick Ebersol, always wears a vest everywhere. But he had quotes at a financial conference this week in New York where he said, quote, "We don't have to have the NBA." He said that if they get the NBA, it has to be a forward-looking deal. We had Michael Nathanson on a couple of weeks ago. He said Turner has to have the NBA. Turner re-signed the entire inside the NBA team, including Charles Barkley. That's a message to the NBA that they need to have the NBA. So the fact that he went on to try to start the negotiations by saying, "Oh, it's not a must-have," I think that it's pretty much a must-have.
Yeah, that brings me to my who's down. We're going to do it a little bit different. You go who's up, I'm going to go who's down. And mine's the NBA on TNT and David Zaslav. I got no props here. I don't have a vest.
You don't have the vest?
No vest for me. But
I feel like Kornheiser to your Wilbon now on PTI. Kornheiser's always the one wearing doing the props.
I kind of want to throw Zaslav a life preserver for that line. I don't know what he was thinking, in my opinion. We're going to get big into this topic in a little bit, but to me, I don't know why you would say that if you're David Zaslav. If you want to do a deal with the NBA is not going to like that. He's basically saying, hey, that product's important. I mean, could you imagine anyone saying that about the NFL going into their negotiations? I'm surprised that he went there. And even if you, it's kind of mixed messaging too, because, we made a big deal when they signed Charles Barkley, 10-year deal. Probably Tony Romo-ish money, and then, sign the rest of the inside the NBA crew iconic. That seems to be, okay, we're putting a salvo, starting our negotiations, showing how serious we are. And it does show that. But if you're posturing with the NBA, this is why, when Michael Bass and the NBA, they always are sending me their ratings. They're we don't need the ratings. The NBA is in tremendous position. Obviously, there could be some headwinds in the economy coming up. That's a variable that could factor in. But in terms of where they are negotiating wise, they're the biggest entity that's going to be negotiating their national deals coming up in the next couple of years. It's a feeding frenzy to get this programming. I don't think Netflix will probably be involved, but even Netflix is starting to think about, should we get into live sports? And so the NBA is going to have plenty of suitors. Adam Silver also did mention broadcast. which you took a shot at a couple of weeks ago in terms of Turner. They do have HBO Max, but they don't have a broadcast channel. Silver brought up broadcast as a possibility. Obviously, they're already on ABC, but maybe they try to add more of that with CBS, Fox, NBC. Who knows who that comes with? So I thought that was an interesting comment, and I kind of think ill-advised. I'm not saying a deal won't happen, but I don't understand really why you want to upset the NBA at this point. I don't think it's going to really affect. It's just, I don't think they're in position to posture. There's too much leverage with Amazon and Apple and others where they don't necessarily, they like Turner, but they don't need Turner. So I thought that was I wouldn't have recommended those comments.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. That's a topic 1, 2, and 3 on the pod. 10 meaning they really don't need it, and whatever. 1 meaning they absolutely need it, and that was a message to the financial community and not the NBA. Where do you put that comment right now?
Wait, give me that scale again. You're confusing me with these scales. All right, so 10 is what?
I got it.
What's 10? What?
All right, let's see if I can remember what my scale was. 10 means.
Give me a different scale. Give me a better scale.
All right, 1, 2, 3. 3 means they don't care about it. It doesn't matter if they get it or not. 1 means, boy, I really want this.
Well, I think they really want it, but I think you're right. They're sending a message. This is a financial call. That said, it's mixed messaging because I don't know, it shows kind of weakness. Like, in my opinion, it says, well, we don't have the financial might necessarily to go where we'll need to go for the NBA. And again, David Zaslav, he knows what he's saying on those calls, but I just don't know what the purpose of that would be. I guess, yeah, it's saying we don't, it's obviously saying to the business community, we don't need the NBA and maybe we'll lose it. So I guess that's, and for a sports media podcast, that's why I'll take it. That's what that says to me. That's what he directly said. We don't need the NBA. So I don't know your scale, but I will say I'm so confused.
It sounds like you're at 1. Sounds like you're a firm 1.
People are listening to me like they're like, why can't Marchand understand the scale? I probably should.
Maybe I answer 1, 2, or 3.
It's not that complicated.
Another right. Zaslav quote, and we'll get off this, but another one of his quotes was, sports is hard. And he's used to dealing with sports in international markets. Here in the U.S., where you have ESPN going against Fox with everybody else, it's a very mature market. So the prices are what he's not used to. And now that we're not talking about Zaslav anymore, I'm going to take off the vest.
And before we go quickly, before we get to who's up and who's down, I want to say, just for the people listening, we have a whole rundown that I kind of put together. We could do it together and then I write it all up. John does not look at it at all because on my who's down, I have all these quotes from Zaslav that you just took in the who's up. And I'm like, I got to improvise. I'm looking at text I'm getting from people. I'm like, all right, I'll talk about this instead as we're going. So John, not a team player.
I can't be bothered with your edits.
John, okay, let's move to my who's up. And it's Bill Cowher. Controversial comments from Bill Cowher. Look, here's the bottom line is that Bill Cowher spoke out against the hiring of Jeff Saturday by the Colts as their interim coach. Cowher, who was a very young coach, became head coach at 34. He was a assistant for 7 years, so he did pay his dues. He's been criticized, but here's the thing about it, is that when Bill Cowher said this,
it's a disgrace to the coaching profession. And regardless how this thing plays out, what happened in Indianapolis is a travesty.
When he said that, that's his job now. And that's good stuff for the NFL today. So if he's right, wrong, indifferent, I don't care. That was a really good moment for the NFL today on CBS on Sunday. It was outspoken. It was passionate. It's everything you want from a coach at that time. We're going to get into another topic. We're going to get into Pat McAfee, Chris Russo, all of them roasting Bill Cowher, also Joe Thomas of the NFL Network, former Browns great. We're going to get into that. We got a super cut later of all their them going back and forth. But I liked it. I think that's what you want from Bill Cowher. So that's a who's up for me for the NFL today and Bill Cowher.
Yeah, Bill Cowher certainly meant what he said. At least that was the image that he projected. My who's down. I'm going to stick with the NFL. It's going to be Hans Schroeder, who is executive vice president and COO of NFL Media, who reports into Brian Roloff, who I'm sure is listening to this podcast. Andrew,
he is now.
Yeah, one of the greatest regular season games in years was the Bills versus the Vikings. It went into overtime, and in 4 markets, Fox, by contract with the NFL, had to get out of those markets in order to show Dallas, Green Bay, and the Dallas and Milwaukee market, and the Arizona, LA game in LA and Phoenix. And look, it's 2022. We're talking about streaming. We just went through cable TV where we have 500 channels. Why can't there be an option to where you can see the end of an overtime game if that's what you want to see? Why do you have to like cut it and immediately go to another game? So I'm picking Hans because Hans is overseeing the broadcast committee. But these are rules that he inherited. These are rules that are stuck in 1980, and they're just rules that it defies explanation why you would want to take people away from that game. I'm in the DC market. I happen to see the end of a fantastic game, a fantastic finish.
So wait, the Ourand new rules would have it so you go to your app and you can stream it? Is that the way you would make this work? Or would you do a split screen?
Fox has a lot of channels. Perhaps they could put it on where they have a duopoly somewhere in the on another broadcast channel. They could put it on Fox Sports 1. They could put it on Fox Sports 2. They could put it on the Big Ten network. They should be able to put it somewhere, right?
What about Tubi?
Tubi. They could stream it to Tubi before they end up getting Sunday Ticket.
I love saying Tubi. I could just like say the whole podcast. Tubi. I love saying Tubi. It's fun. I mean, that's a good name.
Can you imagine?
Everything's plus.
Can you imagine though? Like
Tubi is a good name. Tubi's a good name.
Irrespective of Tubi, if you're in Dallas, you want to see the entire Cowboys game, and you should be able to see the entire Cowboys game in full. But if you're watching a game and then you're going to take them away from it, change the rules. It can't be that hard to change.
I know, like Hans and Roll out there, all their listening is like, wait, you got to point out some of that stuff you just said doesn't make sense. So you can't do, because in some markets, you're not going to have 2 Fox stations. Okay. And then they don't have agreements with the cable to be on FS1. And so like the NFL is as strict as anybody, right? They only let McAfee use symbols for, the emblems for, a little bit there when they had that little fight. So they're not just going to let you put a game on FS1 if they don't have an agreement with FS1. So the streaming aspect of it, though, I think does make sense. They should be able to, you're able to watch it on your app. That if you're you localize it, or to me, why not put a little box in the middle where you can see both games? You're kind of cutting it in half when you do the if you have like a little box in the corner, but that does make sense. There should be a way that you should see it. I agree with you. I don't know if we've solved the problem completely, but we've given them a roadmap that they probably didn't know about. Kidding.
And we will take credit for that when it happens next season.
Hey,
Andrew, last week I had Adam Silver on stage at the Dealmakers conference in Washington, D.C. It was an interview that made headlines, if I can say. It was the first time he publicly spoke about the Kyrie Irving situation. Got picked up by the New York Times, AP, ESPN. We spent a lot of time on that, of course, but I was most interested in how he's approaching the media market. So I peppered him with a lot of questions on the national media market and on the local media market. And so, we're still at the really beginning stages, and he's still sort of looking at the landscape that's out there for national media. One of the questions I asked him was, especially as it pertains to Amazon's Thursday Night Football and how they presented Thursday Night Football, what it is he's really focused on. And this is how he answered that.
As you said earlier, it's what Amazon is obviously doing with the NFL fascinates me. Apple's new Major League Soccer deal, no question, talking to my friends there, talking to people at Apple, understanding what they're doing. What earlier saying, there's the distribution itself coming through the services, but just as important to us is the new found ways of producing these games, of customizing them, personalizing them for consumers. A lot of what we've learned, and even back to your question about an in-season tournament, is by following what happens at leagues outside the United States.
So Andrew, a lot of words there, but what I took out of that answer is that he is open to new ways of delivering the NBA. He's open to trying to get younger fans viewing, presumably through streaming, and he's very interested in the Thursday Night Football, which is what we talk about virtually every pod, but he's also maniacally interested in the MLS and Apple. and he's interested in how Apple and Amazon and Discovery, for that matter, are handling streaming and what they're doing internationally as well.
At the end of that cut, he said something very interesting that we've known, but like I think the NBA and Silver and dating back to David Stern have done a really good job. When they have a problem, they recognize it, and they have a regular season problem, right? The games aren't important enough, and I think you might see that show its face with the new deals, because I don't think I could see ESPN saying, we don't want as much inventory in the regular season. We don't necessarily need Wednesday and Friday. Maybe we just do Wednesday. You saw that they did that in baseball because these regular season games just aren't as important. And a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot, but sometimes the star players aren't playing that make them less important. And so he said he's looking outside the United States. We know this, the in-season tournament, that's going to happen, right? And I do think that's something that they're going to bring to the table. And that's going to be a big part of this new TV deal. Maybe they'll start it before that, but the bottom line is they recognize that. And I do think, and I've written about this in New York Post Plus, my newsletter on Mondays, is that, I do think that the idea of being global, like MLS, like the MLS plan, where they're going to sell subscriptions around the world, makes sense. The question to me is, does it make sense with the MLS? That's the, or a lot of our listeners know just MLS. A lot of people are into that. If you
people kill you on your language specifically. The MLS, irregardless, play-by-player was a new one for you.
What do you mean? What's wrong with play-by-player?
There's a play-by-play announcer. You didn't read the most recent comment on
I didn't see that.
But yeah.
All right, I got to look at that. Play-by-player is fine.
Still a 5-star review, so I was okay with it.
All right, good job. We need that person's name. We got by the end of the podcast, we got to give that person props. So that would be my first takeaway. All right, let's look at the next thing that Adam Silver had to say.
Well, so we were talking about Amazon and streaming and looking to the future and this wild future of new companies. But he made it a point to step back and throw some plaudits out to ESPN and Turner.
What they're thinking about specifically in our vertical, they're great innovators. And part of it, we're in the enviable position right now of letting the marketplace work its magic a little bit, and sort of seeing, all right, where the best idea is going to come from, what's going to drive the most value.
And so my read on that, Andrew, is that Adam Silver and the NBA think the way to stay younger and attract younger fans, and you can see this through Thursday Night Football and what Amazon's audience looks like, is to stream. And that doesn't necessarily mean going to Amazon or going to Apple. It means going to ESPN Plus and Hulu, which the NHL has been doing. It means potentially going to Bleacher Report or HBO Max or Discovery Plus, like whatever the Warner Brothers Discovery's live streaming service is going to be. And so that's going to be a massive part of this deal going forward, it appears.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. When you talk about Turner, Warner Discovery, what is it? WBD,
Warner Brothers Discovery.
Warner WDB Sports. When you talk about both of them, they both have streaming, components. So we always speak about Amazon. We talk about Apple, and the differentiator is that they have a lot of money, although Amazon just laid off 10,000 plus people, right? 11,000, what was it? A lot of people. They still haven't laid off the person who's in charge of anti-Semitic films. They get on that, Jeff Bezos, while you're laying off people. Lay off the person in charge of anti-Semitic films. We got to get that out of there. Kyrie Irving still out there. Stephen A. Smith, good job talking out and saying Bezos needs to figure out what they're doing with that film. They're still silent on that. It's ridiculous. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So they're not the only ones with streaming services. If you're ESPN or you're Turner, you could say we can stream, and they have very good platforms that you could see growth. Like I think HBO Max is there's a lot on there, a lot of original stuff. They've over their history, they've had a good eye of creating new hits. And they have some existing franchises. So I do think that they have a nice combination. But yeah, there's going to be a streaming component. That's and I would say Amazon's probably the favorite. I thought it was interesting, getting back to the Kyrie thing, what Adam Silver said about Kyrie, saying he was surprised that Amazon would host, that type of film that denies the Holocaust. on its platform. I think that, they got to answer that question, Amazon. I mean, I know I don't want to just totally, go back to that, but they really just kind of ignore. Are you just going to ignore it forever? And I think that question needs to be asked. If the NBA is going to do business with Amazon, they're going to have to answer that before you can go forward with it. If Kyrie's out and suspended and Amazon's hosting that, so that's a different stuff. But in terms of what we're speaking to, yes, those are streamers as well, that they have that streaming service, and we're going to see how does the NHL deal does. It does feel like a mix is where you want, though. I really don't feel like, I could be wrong, but like the German league in soccer on ESPN Plus used to be on FS1. I feel like it doesn't exist. And maybe that's just me. I'm sure there's people who listen who love the Bundesliga who are watching it still on ESPN Plus. I'd be interested just to know those numbers and how they compare to what they were getting at FS1. A little out of sight, out of mind, I think. And that's what we talk about, like with the Pac-12, if they end up on Amazon. I just think when you're not the top leagues and you go to a streamer, you can kind of have that Pac-12 network effect.
In terms of, if the NBA rights were up right now, the NBA would be sitting really, really pretty with all these entities looking at it. A lot can happen in the next 3 years. And you referenced Amazon. I think it was 11,000 people, 3% of their global corporate workforce that they're laying off. How long can sports continue to be a drag on Amazon? Because we've always viewed it as a loss leader.
No, John, it's going to be there for a long time.
Are they making money on the NFL or losing money on the NFL right now?
John, it's an 11-year deal. John, if you watch Amazon, read Amazon has Trip Mickle. Tell your boy Trip Mickle, New York Times used to be a sports. Tell him to write a book on Amazon so you can understand. Amazon plays the long game. This is what they do.
They just lost like almost $1 trillion off their market cap. Or the long game is, at some point they got to start making money. It's the same thing with Apple. It's who knows what it's going to look like 3 years from now. I think you're most likely right, but there's a little bit, if not a red flag, a pink flag over there.
Chris Mason, can we clip that? You're most likely right, so we have that for future reference.
I think you're most likely right. Chris Mason, keep that on the cutting room floor, please.
All right, last cut. This is a long one because we got to get to our next topics. We got Mina Kimes in a few minutes with a real fun interview. What's this last one we got from Adam Silver?
Well, last one, I got to talk about the RSNs because the RSNs are a problem. They're a problem for the NBA. They're a problem for Major League Baseball. I asked Adam Silver to sort of give me the lay of the land for the RSNs.
I won't just say it's just a short-term problem. It's a mid-term problem, but we'll work through it because what the market's also saying at the same time, and you've talked about this in terms of the value of our national and international rights, these premium live sports rights are incredibly valuable. And so you really just have a market issue now where you had these traditional deals locked in as exclusivities where in order to get those rights, you had to subscribe to traditional cable and satellite. You're now seeing morphing of enormous numbers of consumers away from those traditional models, but they still want to get these sports rights, but can't get them right now under the existing model. So there's going to be some pain, there's no doubt about it, in this reordering, but long-term, the prospects are still incredibly great because we know fans want to consume this content.
So I just want to highlight one aspect of what he said there, and there's going to be some pain. And I think that's a message to every single team that, their local rights are valuable. They're going to find the value in streaming. There's going to be, at best, an even line, at worst, a rollback in terms of rights fees that go into the teams just because streaming isn't quite there yet. And that's, it's going to be a long, messy situation to get from where we are right now with our RSN standard into the future where it's going to be some sort of amalgamation of RSNs and streaming and who knows what.
Yeah, I think that streaming is going to be a big part of it. And I think I could envision the NBA with their app and what they've reimagined trying to sell directly to consumers along with cable. I mean, Zaslav also said that cable is going to be stronger than people think. I do agree with him in terms of it's not going to be the unbelievable, crazy business that we saw in the past. where it was basically fueling, ESPN was fueling 1/3 of Disney's profits for revenues for a long time there. That said, it's sort of like when you look at the top newspapers, they're still doing well, right? I mean, the top newspapers, overall newspapers aren't doing well, but the top ones are doing well and kind of have a long, they've got a long future. I kind of think you're going to see that with cable as well, where they'll be doing two things at once and they'll be diversifying. So an ESPN is already diversifying with what they do in the bundle with Disney Plus, with Hulu, with ESPN Plus, and then they'll offer direct to consumer as well. You're seeing that transformation happening in real time. And so others will figure that out as well. And where there will be a business that will make sense and I think will work, because especially because of live sports and people want these games. The issue in the local games between the NBA, the NHL, and baseball, it's been super lucrative. Like, can they reach those numbers? I'm not sure about that, because cable at 100 million homes is, and reaching those regional markets like New York, you're reaching a lot of people and a lot who aren't watching those games. Now you're just going to probably get the people who are only watching those games, and it's going to be less about being part of a service and you're paying for something you're not watching. That's where, and the other problem is you can cancel it easier. So there's some trickiness to it, but you could see where the NBA, where it's going to go, and it's going to be a combination, just like we saw with other sports, and that's where everything's going, and that's where the NBA will go.
All right, Andrew, let's go to topic 2. You had a column on your newsletter on Monday where you advocated that sports media should start to step away from Twitter. It was a column that I clicked on and read because I saw that you had tweeted it out, Andrew. I don't want to accuse you of hypocrisy here. Everybody else should get off Twitter, but I'm going to use it to send people to my story. But take me through.
You did read it. So I didn't say, I said it should re-examine its relationship with Twitter, not stop using Twitter. And actually, if you read it, you would know that I used it exactly how I said you should use Twitter, which is to promote your work, not to promote Twitter.
That's for our listeners to judge, Andrew.
All right, they can listen. All right, we'll take them. We'll read the newsletter. I'll explain it here. Here's the thing. Here's the little pop quiz I gave in the newsletter. If John Ourand has exclusive information, should he first go to a place that doesn't pay him and is actually asking for a fee from him or his company to post on their website, or should he go to the place that pays his salary, gives him benefits and health insurance, and put it on their platform? So A or B, what are you going with?
As usual, it's not an easy answer. Tell me about this exclusive that I have. Do I have it for a minute? Am I the first one to get out with it? Or do I have it for a day?
You are so better sourced than everybody. You have this, you're very confident you have it by yourself. It's not something you think that other people are pursuing right away. You feel like you have it alone.
Oh, I'm writing a story. I'm getting a link and I'm going to tweet out that link to hopefully drive people back to the website. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Question number 2. If you're a TV network, let's say ESPN, when you have someone's name on screen, should you put places on your platform, their website, radio station, where you can find more of their work, or B, should you drive them to a place that you have no association with, and actually a lot of people feel like might be a better place to find news instantly that you again have no association with? A or B there?
I would send them. I actually differ with you on this one, Andrew, because I would send them back to Twitter, because I think that if you think about because this is all about Schefter and Woj, really, right?
I think they're the biggest examples. No, I think it's about everybody.
Well, I'm going to use them because they're the biggest examples.
Yeah, they're superstars.
We haven't done this in several episodes. How many Twitter followers do Schefter and Woj have?
Yeah, Schefter has 10 million. You're going to look this up? Schefter has 10 million and Woj has 6 million.
All right, Chris Mason, I need to know how close we are to that.
Schefter has 9.9 million followers, and Woj has 5.7 million followers.
I mean, talk about a marketing platform to get your stuff and the ESPN brand in front of 10 million, 5 million are bots, in front of 5 million people. It's worth a lot.
I see the numbers of click-throughs, and some stories on Twitter get pretty good click-throughs, right? But a lot of stories don't. Even big, humongous stories, they just get picked up Bleacher Report loves to take it and say, oh, at Andrew Marchand, doesn't give a link. Again, not that it's just the right thing to do, Bleacher Report and all your others, Front Office Sports, all your others to take it, put the link because that's the right thing to do. It doesn't really help. It's just the correct thing to do to give the credit to where it's due fully, not just, oh, we gave you credit. No, it doesn't help anybody. I don't need to be in my mentions or the million more mentions that you guys get me. That doesn't help. Give a link. Anyway, how does that help the company you work for?
I would say that it would be detrimental if the only person on Twitter that's breaking NBA news consistently is Shams, and so it ends up.
You made it about Woj and shit. You've made that's what you just said. I didn't say that. At the Athletic and Stadium, who employ Shams, and he's also has a. What is he, FanDuel now? He's FanDuel. So those three places employ him. He should be putting it on those platforms first. It's fundamental. Now I get it.
You are a reporter to the court. I mean, this is about marketing the person, and it's about marketing
it's good for the person.
But it's also good, it's also good for ESPN. This is where if you want me to go more in depth, I'll go more in depth. If you want 280 character, how many characters is it? I think that's right. I'll put that out on Twitter. But it helps ESPN. We're the place for breaking news.
No, it's not. Twitter's the place for breaking news.
If you want to get more, you go through to ESPN.
But people don't want more. They're scroll. Here's the thing. So let me just be clear, okay? You should be on Twitter. Like, I don't think you shouldn't say no more Twitter. I'm not saying we should all get off Twitter. But you should be using it, not it using you. Here's
that we agree on. That we totally agree on.
Okay, if Bob Iger a few years ago for Disney thought about buying Twitter, if he had bought Twitter, would the New York Post, would CBS, would NBC, would Fox, would we all just be throwing our free information on a Disney platform?
That's a good question. I wonder what Fox would do in that case, because it is a platform to get out and to market your wares. Let me ask you a question.
Hold on a second. I just got to say something. I just stumped the Schwab, and that was just a stumping of the Schwab, because I'm correct. You said it's an interesting question. Instead of saying, nope, 100% right. If Disney owned it, we all wouldn't put it for free.
That's a great question.
This isn't really about Elon Musk. It's not about Elon Musk. It's about the idea of we put this stuff out for free. We should use Twitter to promote our work and the place that pays you your money. Okay, what
better way to promote your work than to say, I am the guy that breaks the news? Let me ask you a quick question.
Look, and in this story, I just want to say, in some circumstances, if I know you have a store, I feel very strongly, like Tony Romo, I put the number out, like when, at that point, I thought it was 17 plus million, I wrote, and I knew kind of you were on it as well. So I did tweet that first. And in that case, there are cases where it makes sense. Not as a default, though, that's where all my information goes to first.
Yes,
and
we agree on that.
You're only breaking stories that are seconds ahead of anybody. Those are the only stories you break. Then those aren't really that great a break of stories to break. You want to tell Dave Waldstein from the New York Times, who really cut his teeth and is a postie at heart, New York Post guy at heart. He always says, a breaking story is when you tell people something that the people you're talking about or the place you're talking about doesn't want others to know. Not things they want, they're going to announce or there's a press release. And that is the essence of breaking news. And yes, there is something to saying hirings and things that are going to be announced earlier. There is something to that. Don't get me wrong. But it's really telling information they don't want out there, not the information that's going to be out there.
Well, you and I think, are actually much more similar than this discussion would suggest. If there's a story that I think you have, that you're going to break before I can get my thing published, yeah, I'm going to tweet that out.
That's different.
If it's a story that's going to hold even for like an hour, I'm waiting to get a link out there. And like you said, Twitter doesn't bring a ton of traffic over, but it does bring enough, and it helps out. I think both. Certainly helps out the reporter much more than in the past, but it helps out the publication as well.
Well, I will tell you, when I had the Tom Brady $375 million contract, number, I had that for an hour before. I mean, I was sweating that because it's like, I had this huge number. This is a big story, Brady to Fox, and I had that number for an hour. Bottom line is, I didn't tweet that out. We waited and put it on our website. And so we took that chance. You could have came in and that would have really stunk. but who should get the rewards for it? The New York Post or Twitter?
When I have the Suns ratings on FS Arizona, yeah, I'm going to hold that. I'm not tweeting those out right away, Andrew.
All right, let's move. Last topic. And as we will tweet out all these clips promoting the podcast on Twitter.
But with the clip, yeah.
All right, so there you go. A lot of clips here. Big topic, Jeff Saturday and the media. Let's do a super cut before, and then we'll talk about it, our take on it. First, Bill Cowher comments a little bit. Here's the beginning. We gave you at the beginning of the podcast, we gave you his big comment. But here's a little more from Bill Cowher.
I'm speaking on behalf of the coaching profession. I know for a fact that Jeff Saturday was offered an opportunity to become an assistant coach with the Indianapolis Colts multiple times in the last 4 years. He declined, citing that he had a TV job and wanted to spend more time with his family.
Okay, that was Bill Cowher on the NFL Today. Here's Joe Thomas of the NFL Network on Good Morning Football on the Saturday hiring.
It is one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen in my entire life to the commitment, the lifestyle, and the experience that it takes to be an NFL coach, any coach, much less the head coach of the Indianapolis football Colts. You have got to be kidding me that this is something that Jim Irsay and Jeff Saturday, who's not blameless for accepting the job, could have talked and decided that this was the best thing for the Indianapolis Colts at this juncture of the season.
These two takes, they got a huge reaction. Pat McAfee, after Jeff Saturday gets a W, this is part of it. Most of it he's swearing, so this is part of it where he's not swearing. Here's McAfee on Joe Thomas.
I don't think Joe Thomas is a bad guy. I think he's a puppet. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he felt obligated to say something because somebody told him how disrespected they felt, as opposed to looking at it from a realistic point of view. This is an interim head coaching role. The Indianapolis Colts have underwhelmed everybody on earth, including their fan base.
McAfee also went in on Cowher. And then lastly, Chris Russo, our guy, Mad Dog.
John Ourand.
John Ourand. He goes all in on Bill Cowher.
Somehow, someway, the great Bill Cowher, who got his job without working in Milwaukee. The great Bill Cowher is annoyed that Jeff Saturday got a head coaching job. It's an insult to the profession. Pipe down. All right? Pipe down. You know it's an insult to the profession? That you're walking in a CBS set and you never worked a day in your life anywhere else in broadcasting. Never a day.
All right, Don, bottom line, your take on all of this?
Wow, it really struck a nerve, that hiring in sports media. And the one thing that you said for your Who's Up and Bill Cowher, I believe all these takes are their true takes. I don't think that somebody sat there and decided that they wanted to invent something. So I just think that it is really fun to follow.
Yeah, McAfee got pretty personal with Joe Thomas. He called him a puppet. He kind of called Cowher a puppet as well. I think those are their true takes. I thought Cowher, go listen to the whole Cowher take. It was well done. People have gone, I'm like, well, he was a coach at 34. Yeah, well, he was a player. Then he did 7 years as an assistant, and then he got the coaching job. Look, you can like Jeff Saturday and understand the process is somewhat flawed. I mean, I don't think that's a unfair take, especially when the NFL has had a really hard time figuring out how to promote minority coaches and be head coaches, especially when you look at the league, which I believe is 60% African-American players. And so when you see Jeff Saturday just skipping the line, didn't want to be an assistant coach, I can see how that gets the blood boiling. And here's the one thing I'm going to say. The fact that he won the game is I act like he won the Super Bowl, like the success. I watched the end of the game. There's a linebacker on the Colts who made a tremendous play. That was the difference between winning and losing. If the guy doesn't make that play, is it a bad hire? I mean, I don't know why it's like a referendum because he beat the Raiders. I don't really get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Jeff Saturday might end up being a great coach. I mean, there's no, that's true. That you cannot like the process. That's a fair take to me in terms of experience and someone deserving a shot. I mean, he is a great player. I'm not sure if Jeff Saturday is going to be a Hall of Famer, but maybe. But he's a Super Bowl winner. He's a tremendous player, and from what everyone says, he's got a great personality.
Is this a flash in the pan, or are these going to be are we going to be listening to Saturday takes until the end of regular season?
Yeah, no, this is not ending because
This is
he's either
not
gonna
ending.
do
I
well
agree.
or not. If he does well, then they're never gonna let Cower or Joe Thomas hear the end of it. The people who are said it's fine. Obviously Pat McAfee knows Jeff Saturday. They're teammates. He likes him a lot, and he should. That's fine. And this stuff is complicated. The hiring stuff, right? It's not. Jim Irsay has a good feel for Jeff Saturday. He might really feel like he's got the next great coach, and even though he doesn't care that he didn't coach, and that can be okay. Like, and it might end up being right, but there is a process issue that you could also find, and it's complicated. And the other thing about things, and I think this is kind of in our society, we say there's not necessarily like a right answer. We all want to have opinions on everything, and every time this is right, and there's not necessarily. There's a lot of gray in certain things, and so So having hot takes is great, but there's more to it. John, the big get this week is Mina Kimes. Mina was named ESPN's first female football analyst in 2020. She's on NFL Live. I like that show a lot. Weekdays, 4 to 5 p.m. She has a podcast, The Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, which is her dog. Around the Horn, she's on. PTI, she co-hosts sometimes. Derek Volner, PR extraordinaire in the NFL. Give me a list about 50 other things. We're going to stop there because people have other things to do besides listen to this podcast. But Mina, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and just in case we didn't get the email, Derek was texting us as well. All this great background on you, Mina.
Oh, gosh. I appreciate that.
You took just the most unique route to be an on-screen TV analyst. Take us through how that happened.
Gosh, yeah, I think probably the most unique thing about it is not that I was a writer, because there are writers who go on to opinionate on ESPN, most famously like Stephen A. Smith, right? But more so that I wrote about business for the first part of my career. So for those who don't know, I was a reporter for Fortune Small Business out of college, and then Fortune Magazine for several years, where I was part of the investigations team. Did a lot of stories on Wall Street and healthcare in particular. Then I left Fortune to move to Bloomberg to join the investigations team there, essentially. And that was my last job before ESPN approached me in, I believe, 2014. So the first part of my career had nothing to do with sports. I was writing features about businesses, and mostly businesses doing bad things.
So when ESPN approached you, was that a goal of yours? Did you want to get into sports media, or was that sort of from out of nowhere?
It definitely was not a goal of mine, but I guess it would be inaccurate to say it was out of nowhere, because I was pretty active at the time on social media, talking to people about sports. I would also, I've spoken with Andrew about this. My first, I guess, connection to sports media was working with my friend Bill Barnwell, who had podcasted Bill Barnwell Show. We became friends through social media. So I kind of knew a lot of football Twitter, I guess. But it was a hobby to me, totally a hobby, a passion. Even when I wrote a personal essay that caught the attention of folks at ESPN, but it wasn't my goal to get that to anyone at ESPN. I actually just published it for myself, and then a friend of mine at Slate republished it. It was just a hobby that took way too much of my time. So I was really surprised, honestly, when they reached out to me, because nobody in sports had ever reached out to me before about a job.
Now, John, for this interview, I kind of cheated because I did a whole huge feature on Mina last year. So I kind of know all the answers here. And one thing, when I did that feature, we spoke, I think the first time for like an hour, I asked you where you went to college. And she said she went to college in Connecticut. It's a school.
I don't think that's how it went.
Wait, are you a UConn graduate, Mina?
No, I feel like you might be asking me why I had a 203 number. You got to roll back the tape on that, because I
have the tape. I have the tape. Maybe I can get it before this interview. You said it like that. It was very modest way to say. Maybe look, you would know better how you say it. So perhaps I'm wrong. I will. I usually
try not to do that. That's a Harvard move to say I went to school in Cape. That's like a douchey Harvard.
You said that because you know what, Mina? Because the thing is, I went to Ithaca College, like a lot of ESPNers, and once, and I've told the story about a million times, someone asked me, where'd you go to school? I said Ithaca, and the person said Cornell. And I was like, if I was smart enough to go to Cornell, I would say I went to Cornell. I wouldn't say I went to Ithaca. You'd say you go to Cornell. Anyway, let's get back to you. So at Yale, after your freshman year, you had a job in Baltimore, during the summer, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong.
That's right.
And you were a teacher. What type of teacher were you?
A bad one, Andrew, a bad one. Yeah, I had a bunch of different internships before I got into business journalism, which was like my final internship in college that ultimately led to my first job. I tried book publishing. I tried teaching. I was part of a summer program teaching kids, about fourth and fifth graders in inner city Baltimore, essentially. And I was very, very ill-equipped to do it. And the disciplining side of it really did not come naturally to me, which probably shouldn't have been surprised because I was never a good babysitter. So I've never been particularly good at discipline. I really liked the teaching and reading and that kind of things. But yeah, it became pretty clear to me that teaching was too difficult for me pretty quickly.
And then when you get to ESPN, and you try to navigate, where and how to do things, like what was your kind of goal when you're there? Because you started as a writer. Like, was there a goal? Like a lot of people go in there and they're like, I want to be on SportsCenter, I want to be on Around the Horn, I want to be on this, that, and the other thing. What was Mina Kimes' game plan?
To write big stories. It wasn't to be on TV or do radio or audio or whatever at first. It was to do stories like Wright Thompson. And so I joined ESPN, the magazine, which doesn't exist anymore. But before I joined, I was a reader. And I thought part of the reason I took the job in the first place wasn't just because I love sports, but because I thought it was a terrific magazine that put out just amazing stories. And I was a features writer. And, I talked about this. I thought I was going to be a magazine writer for the rest of my life. So joining ESPN, I just wanted to profile the biggest athletes. I wanted to do investigations. I wanted to travel. And for the first few years, I did get to do a lot of those things.
You want to know a little thing too here, John? Again, I have all the answers to this. So it's like, but she met with David Remnick, who's the, well-known editor of The New Yorker. If that happens now, I think you told me it didn't really get that far down the road, but you might never be in sports if that happens, correct?
Yeah. And people say, well, what would you do now if you release sports? And I would probably go back to being a magazine writer, honestly. There are things about it I don't miss, especially as it pertains to like doing stories on athletes in particular. And that's not about the athletes, it's more about, as you guys know, the access side of it is so complicated these days. But there's a lot I miss about it.
So you're a features writer, doing investigations. Who knows more about the NFL than most people on ESPN? How did you make that transition going?
I don't know about knowing more than most people, but
we can say that. You can't say that, Mina, but we can say that.
Well, we all have like different pockets, which is I think what the best part of working at ESPN is. Everyone kind of has their lane and their, whether it's a position or an approach to talking about football. But I guess I digress. I first started talking about football on the Bill Barnwell show, which I mentioned, and then I did a fantasy football radio show. That was my first radio show at ESPN. So those were kind of my first few opportunities to not just talk about stories I had written, which was prior to that my television and radio experience, but to actually give my opinions. And I'm glad that I didn't jump right into doing TV and giving my opinions, because giving opinions is a craft as much as writing, and I really had to learn how to do it. And I'm still learning how to do it, to be honest.
So I think the most unique thing about giving opinions is hearing from the people that you give opinions about. Did you ever, I'm pretty certain that you heard back from people that were not happy with some of your opinions, Mina.
Yeah, I've heard from a few. We go to the combine, which is always a good chance to come get face to face with some of the athletes, coaches, well, not athletes, but more so the coaches and GMs and front office people that you talk about when you criticize choices. But, I find that most people in the NFL who watch our show and who I get to talk to, whether it's even if it's someone I've been critical of, just appreciate that we take the sport seriously. Even if they don't agree with my takes on game planning or whatever, or roster construction, they're willing to engage because they can see that we are willing to engage too.
Is that something that you had to learn how to do as well?
Be critical or
no, deal with the criticisms of your criticisms.
I would say as an investigative reporter, I used to have it way worse, guys. Are you kidding me? I used to have lawyers yelling at me. You think a GM who's upset that I've been hard on him compares to a lawyer of a Fortune 500 company who's like, yeah, no, this is nothing from a confrontation perspective.
I don't consider you to be a lightning rod at all. I think you seem to be one of the more liked people at ESPN. Of course, earlier this year, Jeff Garcia, makes a comment. I think we can say it was a sexist comment about you and your knowledge. Take us through that sort of firestorm, because that lit up certainly my social feeds.
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I would say I don't think I'm particularly provocative when it comes to my opinionating. Even if I am critical, it's not the kind of stuff that goes crazy because it's, so extreme. That maybe I'm wrong. You guys can correct me. But I do think sometimes because it's me giving the opinion, it might invite more of a reaction, good and bad. I want to say it's not all bad. I think having someone who looks different with a different background being an opinionator naturally kind of makes you stick out a little bit. So I at that point, I've been on TV for a few years now and I've been giving opinions for a few years. I'm pretty used to blowback, again, positive and negative, the extreme reactions. I would say with that particular incident, I was really just confused because I thought I was giving a really milquetoast take on a quarterback who everybody was being critical of. And that's kind of my initial response was like, why are you singling out me? Like literally everyone on earth is saying this. And I don't like seeing my name trending. It's not a fun thing. It's just weird and off-putting. And if anything, it can be a little bit distracting when you just want to do your job being worried about that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was like on Jimmy G, correct?
Yeah. I didn't even say his name. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing well. He was hurt. He wasn't playing well. The team was winning despite him. He's playing better now.
That's fair. All right. Well, I spoke about the feature that I wrote, and so I quoted somebody in there named Jeff Saturday. Anything happened lately?
I forgot you did.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeff.
Anything going on with him? You follow the NFL very closely. So so Jeff Saturday, now interim coach of the Colts. This is what he said about Mina Kimes. I think she could work for a team. I think he sees the games from an analytics perspective as well as anybody. We are coming to a place in our game where you can use analytics for decision making in games. So
you got to bring back that quote, Andrew, because that quote could actually
I know
get
exactly
aggregated
the analytics
now.
thing.
Not
the
to think about
analytics
me,
thing.
but listening to analytics. Yeah.
Jim Irsay said that they don't have to listen to analytics with Jeff Saturday, but that's really not where I'm going. So Jeff Saturday, now in a place of influence, said that he thought you could be part of a front office, or some part of an organization. How do you what would be the circumstances where you could see that maybe working? Is there a scenario?
It's not a dream of mine, and I don't think it's a likely reality. But if it were to happen, I would want to enter at a pretty low level, or or in some kind of like Jeff, like a consulting capacity. Where because I mean, gosh, if you think people thought he leapfrogged people to get there, can you imagine? Oh my gosh, I'm deeply unqualified for the vast majority of positions in that capacity. Can I say something about Jeff though? I know because it's been such a hot topic, I guess, this week, and his qualifications and the process. And I've been critical of the process, as I am with a lot of NFL coaching hires, not because of who he is, but because of just the way in which it tends to happen. There's something I do love about that, which is, people talk about Jeff and his leadership, and it's manifested in like the fact that he's such an emotionally intelligent person, but he's also so open-minded. And I don't feel like anyone's been talking about that, but you really see that on display in that quote, right? Like for him to say that, I mean, he's such a good listener. He would always ask me so many questions, and there's a reason why everybody loves him so much, and for me, that's one of them.
Yeah, but here's what you did a good job of making it about Jeff Saturday. But let's get back to and when I do these stories too, especially these long features, and you spend
Jeff Saturday is not our big get, Mina, right?
Exactly.
He would be a much bigger get.
He'd be a good big get. But no, we're happy with you. When I do these stories, the thing that sticks out about you though is like you're kind of you sort of it feels like you've gone where your passion goes. And I guess my question is, when we talk about, because obviously I think the roadblock, and you don't have to say this, I'll say this, it's like you make too much money now. Like you're not going to go do an entry level position in the NFL, right? I mean, maybe like that would be really something, because those do not pay a lot of money, entry level positions in the NFL, in the front office, analytics. And now I don't know exactly what you make, but I have an idea, and you're making much more than that in a week. And so the question I have though, is it something though that when you think about your passions, and if you could go in, because I actually think you're kind of selling yourself short. Like, again, I don't think you're not going to be a GM, but there are analytics positions that are important, and that, or football decision making that I think you potentially could be qualified, even though there's a lot to do. So is that something you could see, though, being somewhat like if someone was interested, a Jeff Saturday, who's the interim head coach of the Colts, who thinks you could do this, would it be something you'd entertain?
I don't, I just really like my job now because the crossover between actually working in football and talking football is the studying and the, consumption. But what's missing from that side of it and what I get to do is the communication of it. And that's frankly been the thread through all of my various weird jobs along the way is, it's been different subject matter. It's been different people. It's been new challenges, but ultimately it's always been the same core function, which is learning and then communicating in an hopefully entertaining fashion. And I would really miss that. I would really miss talking to people and, there's no better feeling than finding something, identifying something, and then getting to share it and seeing it resonate. And that's not just with an audience. That's with the people I work with. I mean, we're just joking. We on NFL Live, sometimes we plan like little discussions ahead, and I often don't share everything I've like figured out because I love seeing my colleagues like genuine and authentic reactions to things on air. And I would miss that side of it, sort of the actual output of it all.
John, I've got exclusive video of Mina in these meetings. She's like Bill Belichick. She's got like a hoodie on. They go to her. What are you going to talk about? And she's like, oh yeah, Mac Jones is really good.
Go find out.
And then she comes out with like 15 analytic points and like some studying that she did with some video. I mean, you're like
Orlovsky is the same way though. He's always
really?
like, I'm not going to tell you now. Wait until TV on Tuesday. And I'm like, all right, Dan.
We're on to the 4:15 window, Andrew. That's it.
Exactly.
There you go.
So how did you learn how to talk on television? It's a totally different sensibility. Like who sort of helped you through that?
I would attribute a lot of it for me personally to being on the show Around the Horn, which is something I'm sure you guys have heard from other people at ESPN or whatever, because it is that stepping stone for a lot of reporters who become opinionators. And it's so structured. It's almost like when I first started writing in magazines, I didn't write features. I wrote for the front of the book at Fortune, and I would write 300 words, these little 300 word things. But I would just spend so much time making sure that the best 300 words possible. And I learned so much about how like what to cut and what to use, that ultimately when it came to writing features, I felt like, okay, I already know, I figured out how to communicate clearly, quickly, concisely, whatever. And Around the Horn's kind of the same way. Like you really only get 40 seconds to a minute to give your opinion. You have to be listening to what other people say. You have to come up with an original thought and angle, and then think about how you want to say that. And I think that doing that for a couple years before I kind of really fully switched over from writing was really, really helpful as a training ground for giving takes.
Who are the young Mina Kimes, the next Mina Kimes? Who are some young up-and-comers that might not be on our radar screen that we should be looking out for?
I think there's so many good young NFL opinionators these days. And I'm sorry, I'm not just doing this to promote my own podcast, but I love having them on my podcast and like just to kind of get new ideas, see them flourish as well. A lot of like young guys and girls, a lot of them work at The Ringer now. And Ben Solak and Stephen Ruiz are amazing NFL writers. Nora Princiati, who works there and works on their NFL show, is really great as well. Or young guys like Charles McDonald is another NFL writer who I have on, who I think is fantastic. I would also say, let's see, there's as far as a young woman goes, also, I'm a really big fan of Carmen Vitale at Fox. I think she's got a really bright future, and she's really spends a lot of time on her opinions, and I find them really well thought out. So that it's honestly, I think there's never been a better moment for like young NFL writers and thinkers. And I hope like we see more of them in bigger roles, especially in the coming years.
Now, let's talk about NFL Live a little bit. First off, how bad is Orlovsky's food tip? Like on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad are they?
It's not that they're bad. It's just that they're really uninformed. Because when you're around Dan and you eat out a lot with him, and like we go out to group dinners, you realize that he just hasn't had a lot of foods. It's like it's crazy. So we went to Las Vegas for the Pro Bowl or the draft, or forget what it was, and we went out to dinner at Major Domo, and which is Asian. It's a lot of different types of Asian cuisine. And he had just never had so many of the things. And watching him taste them for the first time was so pure. And it was like watching a baby learn how to walk. And that moment I was like, oh, we can't criticize him because he doesn't know what he doesn't know.
Yeah. But do you think it hurts his credibility? Like, people don't know. On Twitter, like some people aren't on Twitter, good for them. And they don't know that Dan Orlovsky, like he just has these like random, like I don't remember them, but they're just like the worst food takes ever. Like there's like hamburgers and French fries aren't good. Like he might not have said that.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like, or don't put ketchup on a hamburger. Like
Reese's cups are bad was his recent latest.
Reese's peanut butter cups are bad. It's just ridiculous. I think it hurts his credibility.
I think Dan's greatest quality is that he has a great sense of humor about himself, and I think he knows what is coming when he shares opinions like that. Not that he's trolling, but I think he is someone who is not deterred by being made fun of. That's for sure.
All right. Does he leave for an NFL job? What's your take?
He's certainly qualified to, in my mind. I don't know if he will. I think he really loves being on TV, but he would crush it.
All right. Should we ask about Marcus Spears' contract's up? Is he going to leave?
Oh,
No,
gosh, I hope not.
That will be
You're breaking news to
the
me.
Coaching ones. I'll keep to that.
That's my big brother, man.
Yeah, no, he'll probably stay, but we'll see.
We've hit Twitter a lot. What's your Twitter plan? Are you going to get off the site? Are you worried about it?
I kind of don't think it's going anywhere. I'll start by saying that. So, I know there's a lot of kind of gloom and doom right now. Appropriate criticism, I think, things are happening mostly from a business angle rather than from a user interface angle too. But for me, I have a complicated relationship with it. Like, I think everyone in our industry has a complicated relationship with it because we all know we have to be on it. And for me personally, I would attribute a lot of my career to not just putting out my own content there, but the people I've met. I mean, shoot, I met Bill Barnwell through Twitter. We talked about how that was kind of my entree to covering the NFL. But I also recognize the ways in which it can be hard on all of our mental health, the addictive nature of it. This is obviously not just Twitter. This is all social media. And I think, like many people, I could do a better job of just managing that stuff for myself personally. So we'll see what happens. I'm just trying to get better at using it, not like from being more entertaining on it, but better at using it for my own brain.
John, there's the last one for me. Do you think if the Mannings had you as the host, it would have been successful, the Manning cast?
No. I oh my gosh, they do not need a host. That was very apparent to me when we were
what was that like? What was that like? Were you
I was thinking the whole time, you really don't need me to be here. They're great. And my other takeaway was, I just think Eli is hilarious. I think he's so funny. And I thought he's so unintentionally funny too. He is intentionally funny, I think, but he also is just such a naturally funny, like he has really great comedic timing. So that was fun to see, like, up close and in person.
Yeah, Mina
Kimes. What was it like when you were a host there? I mean, were they talking over you? Were they like, because it's such an unstructured show, right?
Yeah, I think we were all just trying to figure out what to do, which is, by the way, I think true of any mega cast. You guys have seen a bunch of them, whether it's any sport, football, baseball, whatever. Everybody's trying to figure out the right balance of voices, because it's very different from a studio show. It's not quite a studio show. It's not quite a traditional game. And I think landing on that appropriate balance, it's obviously the job of production, but I think it's something that everyone's just kind of trying to figure out now.
You were never in the ESPN once had one called the Cool Room, which I thought was like the worst thing. You weren't in that one, were you?
No,
they had one. It was literally called the Cool Room.
I saw that. I was like,
if you went to Yale, you're not cool enough for the Cool Room. Come on, Andrew.
It was called the Cool Room. It was for like the should
have told them it was a school in Connecticut.
Yeah. I gotta look. I'm gonna get that tape, Mina. Okay. I'm gonna get that tape. I'm pretty sure.
All right, run it back.
I went to school in Connecticut.
I'm team Mina on this. I'm pretty certain she knows how she answered it, Andrew.
Well, I bet. Okay, I'm gonna guess. I bet you asked everywhere I lived, because if you asked me where I went to college, I would have just said where I went to college. But if I was answering a separate question,
I asked you what you got in the SATs, and you're a little hesitant to say that I only got a 1600. That really would have made the story better, and you got 1560.
And it did get into the story. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wanted 1,600. That's a better. It made it
Wow.
feel better.
You sound like my mom.
Yeah, right. I talked to your mom. She was very nice. I mean, she is.
Hey.
She must be getting psyched up for the World Cup.
Oh,
God.
yeah.
Andrew, we have to end with a Sunday ticket, right?
Go for it. John always asks this. You go, Mina.
Mina, who's going to end up with Sunday ticket next season?
Oh, gosh.
Apple, Amazon, Tubi,
Or Tubi.
ESPN Plus.
Tubi. My money's on Tubi because I don't know what Tubi is, but it sounds futuristic.
Mina, this
it
is
is.
we'll leave it. This is kind of running. John's like a business guy. So
Yeah.
he just like kind of asks everybody about Sunday ticket because it is kind of a mystery in the business.
Somebody's going to be right. Somebody will be
well,
right.
Aaron
Whoever-
Andrews on last week. She also said I go, John. We go over the questions at the beginning, and I see John put that one down, and I was like, "Is that a real question?" And then he asked it. So now it's a tradition. You did pretty well with it.
And then, by the
All
way,
I care
Andrew
about is that
left
it
it
worked
off
well
of
on my
today's
computer.
rundown.
Oh
Yeah, I
my
love it.
gosh. Yeah, selfishly, I just want it to run quickly on my computer. That's
Oh yeah,
whatever.
you're a Sunday ticket.
Selfish.
Yeah, Aaron Andrews is actually at the game, so she can't watch Sunday ticket. You actually do
Oh,
watch
man.
Sunday ticket.
Make my own quad box every morning.
Oh, there you go.
Don't take away the quad. Don't take away that function. Whoever buys it, being able to sort the games and I need that. So
Yeah, I think
that's
they'll
all I
have
care
that.
about.
I think they'll have that. I don't think we'll get individual teams. Like, you won't just be able to buy like the Steelers. I don't think that's happening, right, John?
Yeah.
Or the Seahawks, as it would be.
Or the
That-
Seahawks.
that
But now
doesn't
she needs them
affect
all.
me.
All right. Well, look, Mina Kimes, we really appreciate it. She's on everything on ESPN, specifically NFL Live. She's got a podcast with her dog Lenny, which John has said that that's a better podcast partner than having me, which I thought was insulting to me. But Lenny is very popular.
I didn't mean it, Andrew. I didn't mean it.
Okay, didn't mean it. Anyways, thank you, Mina.
Bye,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew, I thought that was a really fun interview. My one takeaway is something that I hear consistently, and it's about Around the Horn and how Around the Horn is just a breeding ground that trains opinionators to move on. The number of people that have started on Around the Horn and ended up with big on-screen careers like Mina Kimes is it's a long list.
They've kind of, though, the only thing about Around the Horn lately, I like their sports writer roots. They kind of moved away from the sports writers. And I think a lot of times what sports writers have is that they really have great knowledge because they're there on the ground for a long time. So anyways, but with Mina, I thought the front office stuff was interesting. I honestly could see her doing it. The problem is the pay cut. Literally, if you're an entry, she couldn't do an entry level, but if, in the big jobs, just it's a lot less money, which you want to move from LA to Indianapolis or someplace like that. I don't see that, but she's a unique person. I was really impressed just getting to know her for the feature I wrote about her. Just a good person, everyone you talk to says, she treats people the right way in a business where there's a lot of egos and stuff. She it seems like the real deal. So props for Mina Kimes becoming the first female NFL analyst back a couple years ago. And the thing is, she excels. She's really good. I hit the bottom line at the end of the day, female, male, whatever. She says stuff, and she's very smart and has very good knowledge behind it.
Hey, can we play the game one more time? How many Twitter followers does Mina Kimes have?
Mina Kimes, I'm gonna put her around 1 million.
Yeah, when I looked, I think it was 860 is what I saw.
All right. Well, now we gotta look it up. The people need to know. I'm gonna do this real quick as we're doing it. All right, I'm calling up Mina Kimes. I said 1,813,000.7.
That's within the blast zone. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I said 1 million. That did not look. Earlier we talked about Schefter and Woj. I just wrote about Schefter and Woj. I just had written about them, so I had to look those up. So that was a little bit of. I would have gotten it, I think, anyway, but I had looked it up. But that one I had not looked at, and so I'm going to take credit. I'm back.
If Twitter goes away, man, you're going to lose this great party trick.
It's not going anywhere. Right? It might change, but it's gonna stay. All these, whatever. It's gonna be fine, I think.
All right, let's head into our call of the week.
Call of the week.
Andrew, you picked out this clip for Fred Hickman, who died last week. He was host of the Sports Studio show on CNN back in the day, and I just thought, this was before I started reporting on sports business. I would watch him. I would tune in and watch him. He was a big person in my sort of viewing life, and it was sad to see of his passing.
The Pittsburgh Steelers have found their man. Bill Cowher is leaving his job as defensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs to become the Steelers head coach, thus replacing the legendary Chuck Noll. Cowher will be announced officially tomorrow, but they put it off today because of the holiday observance. Not familiar with this guy? Well, if you're employed anywhere in the NFL, you would have been familiar with him. He's a former player with the Browns and with the Philadelphia Eagles, a linebacker. A knee ended his playing days, but Marty Schottenheimer signed him on right away. At age 34, Cowher becomes the second youngest head coach in the entire NFL, just a shade older than Dave Shula.
Yeah, the thing to me about Fred Hickman and Nick Charles on CNN Sports Tonight, the Sports Center is kind of the Yankees, the perennial world champions. CNN Sports Tonight, even though it's CNN, as big as a news agency in sports, they were dwarfed. They were kind of like the Tampa Bay Rays in comparison. They won some division titles. There was a time where they're going neck and neck and even won some ratings battles. And they just had a show. It wasn't as, they weren't trying to reinvent how you say home run, which sometimes worked for SportsCenter anchors and sometimes didn't. Sometimes I just want to hear them say home run. They just said home run, basically. And so it's a heavy heart to hear, Fred Hickman, only 66 years old. Nick Charles passed away a decade ago. They left a mark in sports casting history. So, our condolences to their families and friends and everyone who knew Fred Hickman and for that matter, Nick Charles as well.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of another episode. Always fun to do it. Thanks, as always, to AC Wyatt. By the way, Andrew, AC Wyatt came into my house last week. He was in town for that conference that I was at, and he rearranged my set entirely. So you might see some clips going around on Twitter, or you're watching it on YouTube. I have my starter jacket from 1983 Orioles, last time they won the World Series, a couple of footballs, Brooks Robinson making a diving catch in a frame. So thank you, AC, for doing that.
There you go. So, and if you can, rate us and review and comment especially about my word selection.
Wait, before we go, I got to call that up real quick. Yeah. Speaking of word selection, Andrew, we have Manecki, Manecci, who said it was a 5-star pod, but he said, my only quibble is that Andrew needs to stop saying play-by-player. It's play-by-play, as in Joe Davis is an up-and-coming play-by-play star in media, or Al Michaels is the best play-by-play announcer of all time, and then he goes to all caps. Stop saying play-by-player. So thank you for your comment.
All right, thanks for the 5 stars. I'm still going, no, I'll get rid of you regardless. That was correct. All right, fine. Play-by-player stays. Thanks, everybody.
Team Marchand. Total Team Marchand on that. Yeah, I'll stick with that.